Hi, I'm Jayne from Poppy Patchwork and welcome to my quilt block series. In each of these videos I'm going to show you how to make a different block and they're all going to measure 12 inches. I hope you like this video. If you do, click the like button and please let me know in the comment section below what other videos you'd like me to make. Let's get quilting. Today I'm going to show you how to make the Millstone block. This is a 12-inch block and it will have an unfinished size of 12.5 inches. And if you'd like to know how to use this block in a quilt, please watch to the end of this video where I've got some illustrations to show you how to use it. This block has identical split square units and flying geese units. You will need 8 3¼ inch squares in background fabric, 4 2½ inch squares, and 1 5¾ inch square. In fabric A you will need 1 5¾ inch square, in fabric B you will need 2 5¾ inch squares, and in fabric C you will need 2 5¾ inch squares. Making the identical split square units. Use the 5¾ inch squares in background fabric and fabric A. Using a quilter's quarter, draw 2 diagonal lines on the wrong side of the fabric A, as shown here. Rotate and draw 2 lines on the other diagonal. As shown here. Pin right sides together with the background fabric. Sew along the lines as shown. I have a video demonstration of this on the sewing machine using different fabrics. With those lines that you've drawn on the wrong side of your fabric, you need to sew down the line on the right hand side. And then when you get to the centre you need to stop. So I'm just going to sew down this line on the right hand side. Now I've just gone beyond where the first line crosses over and I'm now in the centre of that line in the centre of the block. I'm going to lower the needle and I'm going to lift the presser foot. I'm going to turn around and now I'm going to cross over the centre of the block and I'm going to stop sewing when I hit the next line. My needle is in the down position. I'm going to lift the presser foot now and pivot the foot around. I can see it's not quite where I want it. I'm just going to manually take that across one more time. And now I'm going to go down the line on the left hand side. Let me just cut that little piece off here and I can show you what I've sewn. So I'm going to take a photograph of that and then I'll show you what you need to sew next. So I've rotated that block around and now I'm going to sew on the line that is on the right hand side until I get to the centre again. So I'm going to lower my needle and now I'm going to raise the press foot and pivot around. It doesn't matter if it's not in exactly the centre position, but what is important is that you now sew across to the next line and stop on that line. So my needle is in the down position. I'm going to raise that presser foot and now I'm going to sew down on the left hand line. I'll now show you a picture of that. Cut between the stitched lines. As shown here. Press the seams towards the darker fabric. And repeat to make 4 units in total. Use the 5 3/4 inch squares in fabric B. Cut these in half across the diagonal. As shown here. Lay the pieces together as shown and be careful with the bias cut on fabric B. With right sides together, pin as shown. Repeat with all 4 units. Sew a 1/4 inch seam as shown. Trimming the split square units with a specialty ruler. I use the Triangle Square Up ruler by Eleanor Burns. Place your unit under the ruler, lining the stitch line at 4.5 inches on the ruler. And line the centre line on the ruler with your vertical stitch line. Trim along both sides. Trimming the split square units with a standard ruler. Place the unit under the ruler, lining the diagonal line on the ruler with the seam. Line the intersecting seam at the halfway point of the finished size of the unit. In this case, half of 4.5 is 2.25. Trim along the top and right edges. As shown here. Rotate the unit round and line up the diagonal and halfway point. trim along the top and right edges. As shown here. Repeat with all units and press towards the larger triangle. Making the flying geese using the 4 at a time method. Use the squares as shown. In fabric A, use the 2 5 3/4 inch squares, and in background fabric use the 8 3 1/4 inch squares. Draw a diagonal line on the wrong side of all the small squares. As shown here. Pin 2 of the small squares in the opposite corners of the large square with the diagonal line as shown. Repeat with both large squares. Sew a 1/4 inch seam away from the line on both sides of the line. Then cut along the drawn line. As shown here. Repeat to get 4 units as shown. Press seams towards the smaller triangles. Pin a small square in the corner of the large square with the drawn line as shown. Sew a 1/4 inch seam on both sides of the drawn line, then cut along the drawn line. As shown here. Repeat for all 8 units. Press the seams towards the smaller triangle. Trimming the flying geese using a specialty ruler. I use the Ultimate Flying Geese tool by Deb Heatherly from Creative Grids. Lay the unit under the ruler for trim number 1 at the 2 by 4 inch mark on the ruler. Trim along the right and top sides of the ruler as shown. Rotate the ruler and unit round to trim number 2 and line up at 2 by 4 inches. Trim along the right and top sides of the ruler as shown. Repeat with all 8 units. If you do not have a specialty ruler, please click on the link above to take you to my video on how to trim your flying geese with a standard quilting ruler. And when you're trimming these, trim them to 2.5 by 4.5 inches. Block layout. If you'd like to get perfect points on your quilt blocks, please click on the link above to take you to my video on this. Press your unit and lay in the block layout. Pin the bottom 2 rows and the top 2 rows. Sew with a 1/4 inch seam, and there's no need to press yet. Pin the 2 halves together as shown. Sew with a 1/4 inch seam, press the seams open and return to the block layout. Pin the left and the right side columns together, matching the seams and points. Sew with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, press the seams open and return to the block layout. Pin and sew the 2 halves together with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, matching your points. Press the seams open and return to the block layout. Congratulations, you have made the Millstone block. Here are some quilt options. This is an illustration of the quilt repeating the same block. There is no sashing or borders, but the use of the white background fabric in the block allows the design and fabrics to stand out. This is an illustration of the quilt repeating the same block placed on point. There is no sashing or borders, but you would need to add blocks in background fabric in between the blocks shown here with the stars, and use setting triangles around the edges, again shown here with the stars. This is an illustration of the quilt repeating the same block but with sashing, cornerstones and borders. And finally, this is an illustration of a sampler quilt using some of the blocks from this quilt block series. The sashing in this quilt is in the white background fabric. The cornerstones and border is in a darker fabric to pop and frame the quilt. Want to learn more? Watch another one of my videos from the quilt block series. Click above to go to my playlist. I hope you liked this video. Please like and subscribe to my channel. More of these videos will be posted, so please tune in. Thank you for watching and bye for now.